swallowed by the ocean, trapped in total darkness. 60 hours alone at the bottom of the sea, with nothing but a shrinking pocket of air to keep him alive. No food, no light, no sound except the creaking of a dead ship. No one should survive that long underwater. But Harrison Okene did. Harrison, 29 years old, a Nigerian cook working aboard the tugboat Jascon 4. He wasn't a diver, not a sailor trained for disaster, just a man preparing meals for the crew. It was supposed to be a routine day near the Chevron oil fields off Nigeria's coast. Calm water, light work, nothing unusual. Harrison woke early, said a quiet prayer, and headed into the ship's tiny bathroom. It was the last normal moment of his life. Without warning, a massive wave slammed into the vessel. A violent roar, metal twisting, screams echoing through hallways. The tugboat lifted, rolled, and capsized in seconds. Harrison was thrown sideways, water rushing in like a living beast, tearing everything apart. The lights died instantly, plunging him into pitch black. He grabbed at anything, door frames, walls, but the force pulled him deeper, spinning him through narrowing spaces as the ship sank. In less than 3 minutes, the boat hit the seafloor 30 meters deep. For most of the crew, the nightmare ended there, but not for him. Thrown into pure darkness, Harrison fought the instinct to inhale water. He clawed blindly until his hand broke through the surface of a small bubble of trapped air. A pocket formed as the ship rolled over. He didn't know where he was, only that he was alive. For the moment. The air smelled of diesel rust and fear. Cold water rose to his chest. Each breath felt borrowed. The human body can survive a few minutes underwater, maybe an hour in freezing conditions, but a pocket of air at the bottom of the ocean. That's not survival. That's a temporary delay of death. Hours passed. Harrison shivered violently. The water was icy. Hypothermia crept beneath his skin like claws. Each breath tasted thinner. Air pockets lose oxygen fast and fill with carbon dioxide, which becomes toxic. He knew none of the science, but he felt it. His head growing heavy, breaths harder, thoughts slower. He whispered prayers, the only thing keeping panic from crushing him. God save me, don't let me die here. But the darkness answered with silence. The ship groaned with every ripple of current. Metal panels popped. Something heavy shifted, sending vibrations through the walls. He imagined the entire structure collapsing and sealing his tomb permanently. Boom. Hunger gnawed at him. His throat burned from salt water. His lips cracked. Each sound in the blackness became a phantom sharks bumping the hull bodies, floating nearby spirits whispering. Isolation can destroy the mind long before the body fails. Harrison felt his sanity slipping, holding on to prayer to stay alive. He searched the little air pocket with trembling hands, exploring the overturned chamber. His fingers found another larger space above him. Mustering strength, he dove underwater, pushing into absolute darkness until he surfaced again, another breath of trapped air. A bigger pocket, enough space to lift his chest above water, reducing heat loss. It wasn't safety, but it was something. Experts later said this improved his survival chance by nearly 70%. Not because the air was clean, it wasn't, but because he could conserve body heat and slow down hypothermia. Harrison didn't know that. He just followed instinct. Time lost meaning. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like days. His body shook uncontrollably. Hunger became pain. The cold crawled into his bones. He heard fish scraping the hull. Something brushed his feet underwater, soft, slow drifting. He didn't look. He didn't want to know. Dear. Above him, rescue teams scanned the ocean, retrieving bodies. No one believed a man could still be alive inside the wreck. The water was too deep. The ship too unstable. Hope was fading. On the second night, Harrison hallucinated voices. Footsteps, warm air, light. His mother calling him home. He blinked into nothing but the void, the line between life and death blurred. But he clung to one thing: his desire to live, his promise to return to his family, his belief that God could still hear him. He kept tapping on metal pipes, sending out faint signals. Maybe someone would hear. Maybe someone would believe. Then came a moment that would decide everything. With oxygen dwindling and carbon dioxide rising, Harrison felt dizziness swell. His breath shortened. A burning sensation filled his lungs. He knew he had hours left, maybe less. He had one decision to make: stay in his pocket and hope, or attempt to swim through the dark, collapsed interior of a sunken ship toward an exit he couldn't see. One path meant nearly guaranteed death. The other meant immediate drowning. He chose to stay. Chose to wait. Chose to trust that someone somehow would find him. And then the faintest sound. A metallic thud. Bubbles vibrating through the hull. Something moving in the water outside. Divers. Real divers. He heard them, but they couldn't hear him. They were searching for bodies, not survivors. Their lights flashed somewhere in the dark water below his chamber. Harrison forced himself underwater again, swimming toward the faint glimmer. His chest burned. His lungs screamed. He reached the edge of the chamber and banged desperately on the metal, but the diver turned away. He surfaced again, shaking, almost unconscious. He thought he'd lost his one chance. Moments later, another light. Closer. Slow. Searching. Harrison took his final risk. He plunged underwater, using the last of his strength. He stretched his hand into the black. Then contact. A diver's hand brushed his. The diver jerked back in shock. Nobody expected the dead to touch them. The diver's camera captured everything: a hand emerging from the darkness, reaching for life. Harrison surfaced into the beam of their light eyes, wild, breathing, ragged. He whispered, "I'm alive. Thank you." The diver radioed the surface, voice shaking. "We found one. He's alive." Even they couldn't believe it. But rescue wasn't simple. Bringing someone from 30 meters after 60 hours in compressed air risked deadly decompression sickness. The divers gave Harrison an oxygen mask, calmed him, and slowly guided him out through the winding corridors of the wreck. Every second was a gamble. One wrong movement could collapse the fragile air pocket or flood the chamber. One mistake could kill him instantly. But step by step, meter by meter, they rose toward the surface. Finally, light. Real light. Harrison broke the surface, gasping the first clean breath in nearly 3 days. The world roared back to life. He was wrapped in blankets, lifted into the rescue boat, treated by medics who stared in disbelief. He was alive, shaking, exhausted, but alive. He had survived where no one should. 60 hours at the bottom of the ocean in a place meant only for the dead. Later experts called it a miracle. Scientists studied the conditions. Divers replayed the footage. But Harrison's survival wasn't just physics or luck. It was willpower, faith, the refusal to surrender even when trapped in a steel grave. And now, a question for you: if you were alone in total darkness, breathing your last pocket of air, what would keep you fighting to survive? But survival doesn't stop the moment you're rescued. It follows you, clings to you, echoes in your bones long after the danger is gone. For Harrison, the hours after he reached the surface were a blur. His body shook uncontrollably as medics wrapped him in blankets. His skin was pale, wrinkled, waterlogged. His voice cracked every time he tried to speak, but he kept repeating the same words: "Thank you. Thank you. I thought I was dead." Inside the rescue vessel, the air felt too bright, too fresh. His lungs struggled to adjust. Every breath felt like a miracle and a shock. For 60 hours, he had inhaled stale, toxic air. Now oxygen flooded his bloodstream too quickly, and medics monitored him for decompression sickness, high carbon dioxide exposure, and hypothermia. Buff job. His hands were trembling not only from the cold, but from something deeper, shock trauma, the violent shift from hopelessness to salvation. He looked down at his fingers. The skin was pale, pruned, almost ghost-like. His legs could barely move. When they removed his soaked clothes, they found deep scratches, bruises, and salt burns. Nothing life-threatening, but all reminders of how close he'd been to dying. His mind was still in the darkness. Even surrounded by people, he felt as if he were floating in the silent chambers of the sunken ship. Every sound, machines beeping, radios clicking, felt distant, unreal. Divers later returned to the wreck with cameras. The footage showed how impossible his survival really was. The ship was twisted, cramped, flooded. There was only one chamber with breathable air, one tiny place where he could cling to life, a location the size of a small closet, buried beneath tons of steel. Oh. The fact that he found it, stayed alive in it, and was discovered by divers searching for bodies was nothing less than extraordinary. In the hospital, Harrison asked how long he'd been down there. When they told him about 60 hours, he stared at the wall, blinking slowly, trying to absorb the weight of that number. He whispered, "I thought it was a week." His perception of time had shattered. In darkness, minutes stretch into lifetimes. Doctors monitored him for hours. His oxygen levels were unstable. His muscles spasmed. His nerves were overstimulated. But what concerned them most was the psychological aftermath. Survivors of extreme isolation often suffer hallucinations, insomnia, panic attacks, and fear of enclosed spaces. That night, Harrison woke up 3 times, sitting upright, gasping, convinced the room was filling with water. Nurses calmed him, reminding him he was safe. But the ocean still lived in his nightmares. And then came another emotional blow. He learned the truth. Almost everyone on the Jascon 4 had died. 11 crew members, friends he had laughed with, worked with, shared meals with, gone in minutes. Harrison survived, but survival sometimes brings guilt. In interviews later, he admitted he struggled with the question, why me? Why was I the only one left? A question with no answer. But with time, gratitude replaced guilt. His wife held him crying, thanking God for bringing him back. Neighbors visited, stunned by the story. Journalists arrived. Photographers snapped pictures. Harrison, still overwhelmed, simply said, "I only prayed. I only held on. I didn't know what else to do." His story spread worldwide. People called it a miracle. Scientists called it a rare convergence of conditions: air pocket volume, water temperature, human physiology, diver timing. But Harrison himself believed something else guided him, something greater. He returned to the wreck months later, in his mind replaying every moment. The cold water, the deafening silence, the distant thumps of rescue divers, the moment a human hand touched his underwater, the moment his nightmare cracked open and hope flooded in. Those memories didn't haunt him. They changed him. They sharpened his appreciation for life, for breath, for sunlight, for the sound of another human voice. And with time, he realized something important. Surviving wasn't just about staying alive underwater. It was choosing moment after moment not to surrender, even when everything told him it was over, even when the world above had given up on him. His story isn't just about endurance. It's about the mind's ability to fight death long after the body is exhausted. And now, after all of it, after darkness, fear, miracles, recovery, one question remains. If you were trapped in absolute darkness, with fading air and no guarantee of rescue, would you still believe you could survive long enough to see the light again?